Rejected by the alpha, but carrying his heir. Before we begin our story, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more like this. And now, for Howl at Midnight. The Alpha's Heir. The night smelled of pine and storm. Rain drummed against the tin roof of the pack house, and beneath it, Arya stood trembling before the Alpha who had once been her everything. His golden eyes were sharp, his jaw set in steel. Every heartbeat of hers seemed to echo in the hollow silence between them. "You don't belong here," Damien growled, his voice low and final. The Alpha's rejection cut deeper than claws. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "We both know that isn't true." Damien's hand flexed at his side, veins standing out against the tension. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes, pain, longing, but it was gone before she could breathe. "You were a mistake. I will not claim you as my mate." The words gutted her. Her wolf whimpered inside, clawing for him, but Arya stood her ground. She would not let him see her break. Not here, not in front of the pack who whispered behind closed doors, who already believed she was too soft, too human-hearted to stand beside an alpha like Damien Blackthorn. So she turned, spine straight, though her vision blurred with tears. The door slammed behind her, and with it, the life she'd imagined shattered into shards she could never piece back together. But the storm outside did not drown out the secret already growing within her. Weeks later, kneeling on the bathroom floor of her tiny cottage, Arya pressed a shaking hand to her stomach as the test strip confirmed what her wolf already knew. Her breath caught in her throat. A child. His child. The heir to the Blackthorn pack. Fear and wonder twisted inside her chest. She remembered Damien's final words, that cruel severing of their bond. "I will not claim you." And yet, the bond still pulsed inside her, alive and unbroken. Arya curled her knees to her chest, rocking gently, torn between rage and tenderness. What kind of future could she give this child? The pack would never forgive her, never forgive Damien for turning his back on fate. But when she closed her eyes, she felt the wolf within stir protectively, fiercely. Her child would not be alone. She would fight tooth and claw to keep it safe. Still. At night she dreamed of him. Damien, his touch, his warmth. The fire of his rejection. The ghost of his lips on hers. And in the darkness, a question haunted her, would he sense it? The bond, the life inside her? Would he come for them, or would he destroy them both? Arya kept to the edges of the village, where the shadows of the forest pressed close and the scent of damp earth masked her trail. Wolves passed her sometimes on the winding dirt paths, packmates she had once called family, but their eyes slid away, their silence sharper than words. Rejected mates carried a stain, and she bore it on her skin like a brand. She wrapped her cloak tighter around herself as the autumn air sharpened. Beneath its folds, her body was already changing. Not enough for others to notice yet, but she could feel it. Her wolf instincts urged her to protect, to hide, to shield the fragile spark of life inside. One evening, she lingered too long outside the herbalist's hut. Madame Leora's hands, wrinkled and sure, poured steaming tea into a chipped cup. "You're late," the old woman rasped, her pale eyes too keen. Arya lowered her gaze. "I was careful." Leora huffed, waving her inside. The hut smelled of dried sage, rosemary, and smoke. "Careful won't keep a secret forever, girl. The alpha may be blind to his own heart, but he's no fool. He'll scent it soon enough." The words made Arya flinch. Her hand brushed against her abdomen without thought. "He doesn't want me. He made that clear. This child is mine to protect, not his." The old woman gave a long, considering look. "You may believe that. But the moon's bond doesn't break just because a stubborn alpha speaks the wrong words. You feel him still, don't you?" Heat rose in Arya's cheeks. "I don't want to." "And yet," Leora murmured, "your wolf does." The truth of it hurt more than rejection. Even now, her heart jumped at the faintest memory of his touch, her body aching for him in ways she despised. Outside, a howl split the night. The pack was hunting. The sound reverberated through Arya's bones, stirring her wolf to answer, but she bit her tongue until blood filled her mouth. She would not risk joining them. If Damien caught her scent and realized what she carried. But then again, another danger lurked, one she had not yet spoken aloud. Because at night, when she lay alone in her bed, shadows stirred at her window. Shapes darker than wolves whispered from the forest's edge. Eyes glowed red in places no pack wolf would tread. And though Arya had not confessed it to Leora, she felt them circling closer with every passing day. As if they already knew. As if they were waiting for Damien Blackthorn's heir. The wind rattled the shutters that night, carrying with it the musk of pine and something fouler, iron and rot. Arya's wolf bristled within her, ears perked, hackles raised. She sat upright in bed, her breath caught in her throat. The scent came again, thicker now, curling beneath the door. Not wolf. Not human. Something older. A low growl vibrated in her chest before she could stop it. She slid from the bed, bare feet whispering against the worn floorboards, and reached for the small silver dagger she kept beneath her pillow. Her fingers tightened around the hilt, and the metal hummed with a faint pulse of magic. Leora had pressed it into her hand weeks ago, her voice grave. For what hunts in the dark? For what is not of the pack? A thud against the door. The wood shuddered. Another thud, harder this time. Arya's pulse thundered in her ears. Instinct screamed at her to run, but her hand pressed unconsciously against her belly. She would not run. Not with her child unprotected. The door splintered inward, and the stench filled the room. A figure slid through the crack, thin, unnaturally long limbs, eyes glowing like cinders and a skull too gaunt to be alive. Its smile gleamed wet, sharp, and wrong. Mother, it hissed, voice like wine through dead leaves. You carry him. The blood we've waited for. Arya's stomach twisted, nausea and terror battling. Her wolf lunged forward within her, snarling. Stay away from my child, she spat, voice shaking but fierce. The creature tilted its head, bones cracking with the movement. We only want what was promised. It darted forward, faster than sight. But Arya's wolf was faster still. She slashed the dagger in a bright arc, silver flashing. The blade bit deep into its chest. A shriek ripped through the room, high and shattering, and the thing staggered back, black smoke seeping from the wound. Arya pressed forward, teeth bared, dagger poised. Come closer, and I'll end you. The shadow hissed, retreating toward the broken door. Its form shimmered, already thinning like mist. You cannot hide him forever. Blood calls to blood. Even your alpha cannot protect you from us. And then it was gone, dissolved into the night. Arya's knees nearly buckled. She slid down against the wall, dagger slipping from her hand. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her heart racing too fast. For the first time, it struck her with bone-deep certainty, this wasn't just about rejection, or shame, or hiding from Damien. Something darker had marked her child. Something dangerous wanted him. And Damien Blackthorn, whether he wanted her or not, was the only one strong enough to stand against it. But would he stand with her, or against her? Damien paced the ridge at the edge of the Blackthorn territory, moonlight gilding his dark hair in silver. The hunt had ended, the pack fed and howling in triumph, yet he could not find peace. His wolf prowled restless beneath his skin, ears pricked to a frequency no one else seemed to hear. It was her. Arya. No matter how he tried to cut her from his heart, the bond clawed at him, dragging her scent across his senses when she was nowhere near. Tonight it burned hotter, threaded with fear sharp enough to choke him. He stopped mid-stride, chest heaving. Something had brushed his territory. Something fell. Alpha? His beta, Marcus, approached cautiously, blood from the hunt still staining his muzzle. You're unsettled. Damien's jaw tightened. He hated showing weakness. There's something near the southern woods. Patrols will double tonight. I want reports every hour. Marcus hesitated. Southern woods? Near, her cottage? Damien's teeth flashed. Do not speak her name. The beta dipped his head, but the question still hung unspoken. The pack had noticed, of course. They always noticed. Their alpha had cast away his fated mate, and yet the bond still gnawed at him like a wound that refused to heal. When the others dispersed, Damien remained alone on the ridge, fists clenched at his sides. He could almost taste the fear carried on the wind, faint but real. Aria's fear. And beneath it, something else. Something dark, metallic, wrong. His wolf surged, demanding he go to her. To protect. To claim. But Damien forced the beast down with a snarl. He had made his choice. She was too fragile, too human-hearted, to bear the weight of his world. She deserved peace, not the endless wars that shadowed an alpha's throne. Still, his chest ached as if torn in two. The next morning, Damien stood at the council hall, addressing the elders about the patrols. His mind drifted, unfocused, until a flicker of movement at the far end of the hall caught his eye. Aria. She slipped through the crowd like a ghost, hood drawn, face pale. She kept her gaze averted, but even from a distance, he noticed the subtle change in her, fuller curves, the protective way her hand brushed against her cloak's folds. His heart stopped. The bond roared to life like fire through his veins. His wolf howled in triumph and anguish all at once. He could scent it now, faint but undeniable. Life. His life. Their heir. Damien's hand gripped the doorframe hard enough to splinter wood as he caught Aria leaving the council hall. She froze, her hood falling back, green eyes wide. The crowd bustled past them, unaware of the storm crackling between alpha and rejected mate. Aria, he said, voice rough, low enough that only she could hear. Her throat worked as she swallowed. Step aside, Damien. But he didn't move. His gaze swept over her, sharp and searching, lingering on the way she held her cloak. The bond thrummed violently in his chest, pulling his attention to the subtle swell at her middle. Every instinct screamed the truth at him. His voice came out like a growl. You're carrying. Her jaw tightened. It doesn't concern you. He caught her wrist before she could turn away, but she jerked against his hold with surprising strength. Her wolf sparked hot in her eyes, fierce, protective. Let me go. Damien leaned closer, his breath brushing her cheek. You carry my heir. You think that doesn't concern me? Her laugh was bitter, broken. You rejected me, Damien. You made your choice. And now you think you can claim what's mine? The words struck harder than claws. Guilt gnawed at him, but he held his ground. Our bond doesn't break because I was a fool. His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist without thought, feeling the rapid flutter of her pulse. And that child, our child, will not grow up unprotected. Her eyes filled with unshed tears, but her voice sharpened to a blade. Protected? Or controlled? Tell me, would you raise him in chains the way you chained me with your rejection? For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Damien's wolf held inside him, torn between rage at her words and agony at their truth. He released her, fingers curling into fists. Then he spoke softly, almost pleading. Something hunted near your lands last night. I scented it. That child is already a target, Aria. If you keep pushing me away, you may not live long enough to hate me. Her breath hitched. She hadn't expected him to know. But before she could reply, a messenger burst into the hall, panting, eyes wide with fear. Alpha. There's been another attack at the southern border. The guards, what's left of them, say it wasn't wolves. It was something else. Damien's gaze snapped to Aria. And for the first time since his rejection, her eyes didn't just hold anger, they held fear. The council chamber erupted in shouts, elders demanding answers, warriors clamoring for orders, but Damien's focus never left Aria. Her pulse quickened, her scent sharp with fear, though her chin lifted in defiance as always. Out, Damien snapped, his alpha voice rolling like thunder. The noise ceased instantly. Wolves scattered, leaving only Arya, the messenger, and Marcus. Damien's golden gaze pinned his beta. Handle the border. Double the guard. Kill anything that isn't ours. Marcus dipped his head and hurried away, leaving the two of them alone in the echoing chamber. Arya crossed her arms over her chest, cloak hiding the curve of her stomach. Don't look at me like that. Whatever's happening out there, it isn't my problem anymore. Damien's wolf surged, demanding he pin her against the wall until she admitted the truth both of them felt, but he forced the beast down. He stepped closer, voice low and steady. It is your problem. Because they're hunting you. Her lips parted, but no words came. You think I don't know what I scented last night? He continued, eyes narrowing. Blood and rot, shadows that don't belong to this realm. They came to you, didn't they? Arya stiffened. A fraction of a second, but enough for him to see. I handled it. Handled it? He snarled, pacing, barely leashed fury in every line of his body. You're pregnant, Arya. Carrying a bond-born heir that half this pack would kill to claim or destroy. And you think you can fight off what crawls in from the dark alone? Her hands trembled where they clutched her cloak. I don't need you. I don't need your protection. You forfeited that the night you cast me aside. Damien stilled. His chest rose and fell hard, but when he spoke again, the words were raw. Then hate me if you must. But I will not let you face this alone. You and that child are mine to protect, no matter how much you despise me. The chamber seemed to shrink around them, the silence sharp. Arya's throat ached with unshed tears, her wolf clawing at her to trust him, to lean into the bond that pulsed stronger than ever. But the wound of his rejection bled too deep. Protection, she whispered bitterly, isn't love. Damien flinched as if she had struck him. Still, his hand came up, almost trembling, and he laid it gently against the cloak over her belly. His eyes burned into hers, fierce and unyielding. Love or not, Arya, this child is the future of the Blackthorn pack. And I will guard it with my life. Arya's cottage had never felt so small. The walls pressed inward, the hearth's glow too intimate with Damien's massive frame filling the space. He moved with the restless grace of a predator trapped in a cage, golden eyes sweeping every corner as though shadows might leap out at any moment. You don't have to stay, Arya muttered, tugging her cloak tighter even though the fire warmed the room. I've lived here months without your help. Damien turned, expression hard. And you were nearly slaughtered by whatever broke your door last night. Her breath caught. She hadn't told him about the attack in detail, hadn't admitted how close the blade had come to slipping from her hand. I managed, she said, but the words sounded thin even to her own ears. His gaze softened for a fleeting instant, the alpha slipping away to reveal the man she once knew. I should have been here. Arya bit the inside of her cheek, forcing down the ache in her chest. You weren't. You chose not to be. Silence stretched taut between them, heavy with what neither dared to say. Damien finally dragged a chair to the door and sat, his body a wall of muscle and iron will. Sleep. I'll keep watch. Her wolf stirred uneasily. The bond thrummed with heat and longing, tugging her toward him even as her mind screamed against it. She turned away, retreating to the small bed tucked against the wall. Lying down, she pressed her hand over her stomach, feeling the faint flutter of life within. The child calmed her wolf, anchored her in ways Damien no longer could. And yet, with him so close, her body betrayed her, remembering every stolen kiss, every night tangled in his arms. She closed her eyes, but sleep would not come. Hours stretched, the fire dimmed to embers, and still she felt his gaze on her. Arya, he said at last, voice quiet, stripped of alpha command. She turned, unable to resist. His eyes burned in the firelight, not golden but molten, vulnerable. I made a mistake, he confessed. The words scraped raw from his throat. Pushing you away, it wasn't strength. It was fear. And I've regretted it every damn day since. Her heart thudded painfully. She wanted to believe him, to throw herself into his arms. But the memory of rejection was a scar carved too deep. "Damien," she whispered, tears pricking her lashes, "don't say this now. Not when I need to stay strong enough to hate you." His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Instead, he leaned back in the chair, shadow swallowing his expression. "Then hate me," he said softly. "But I'll still be here when you wake." The night split open with a scream. Arya bolted upright, heart pounding, even before Damien was on his feet. The scent hit her first. Iron, rot, and ash, the same stench that had crawled through her door nights before. Shadow seeped beneath the window frame, writhing like smoke with claws. "Stay back," Damien barked, shoving the chair aside and drawing the dagger from his belt. His wolf surged to the surface, his voice edged with a growl. But Arya's wolf rose with equal ferocity, her own blade already in her hand. "I'm not hiding while they come for my child." A dark figure burst through the window, shattering wood and glass. Its eyes blazed red, its limbs grotesquely long, scraping against the ceiling beams. Another slipped through the open doorway, silent as mist. "Two," Damien hissed, scanning their angles. "Stay behind me." Instead, Arya shifted her stance beside him, shoulders squared, dagger flashing in the firelight. For a breath, their wolves aligned, two heartbeats, one rhythm, an instinct as old as the moon itself. The first creature lunged. Damien met it head-on, blade sinking deep into its chest. Black smoke hissed from the wound, filling the air with a choking stench. The second darted toward Arya, teeth snapping. She slashed low, silver biting across its leg, and it screeched, stumbling. "Arya!" Damien snarled, spinning just in time to drive his blade into the creature's throat before it reached her. Blood like tar sprayed across the floorboards. But the first one wasn't finished. It writhed, reforming, smoke knitting into flesh again. Damien grabbed Arya's arm, dragging her close as the thing lurched upright. "Silver only slows them," Arya gasped, remembering Leora's warning. Damien's golden eyes burned as he shoved her behind him. "Then we burn them." He kicked the creature backward into the hearth. Flames roared higher, licking its twisted body, and the shrieks that followed rattled the walls. The smell of charred flesh filled the cottage. The second, wounded, hissed in fury, but Arya drove her dagger into its eye with a cry that came from her very soul. It convulsed, then collapsed into nothing but smoke and ash. Silence fell. The fire sputtered, glass crunched beneath their feet. Damien stood panting, chest heaving, dagger blackened in his grip. Arya leaned against the wall, her own weapon slick, her body trembling but unbroken. He turned to her, eyes wild. "This is what I feared. They won't stop. Not until they have you. Not until they have him." His gaze dropped briefly to her belly, then rose again, fierce and unyielding. Arya met his stare, her chest rising and falling, tears streaking her face. "Then we fight," she said hoarsely. "Together." Something cracked open in Damien's chest, rage, relief, and something dangerously close to hope. The council fire burned high in the stone circle, its flames casting long shadows across the gathering of wolves. Elders sat rigid in their carved seats, their eyes sharp, wary. Warriors ringed the circle's edge, bristling with confusion at being summoned in the dead of night. Arya stood at the center beside Damien, her hood pushed back, her face pale but resolute. She could feel every eye on her, the whispers crawling like insects along her skin. The rejected mate. The one who had no place here. Damien's presence beside her was a wall of steel, his hand resting lightly, possessively, on the hilt of his dagger. His golden gaze swept the council, daring anyone to speak first. Elder Varro leaned forward, his voice like gravel. "Why bring us here, Alpha? Has the girl bewitched you again?" A low growl rumbled in Damien's throat, but Arya raised her chin. "I was attacked." Her voice carried clear, unshaken despite the tightness in her chest. "Not by rogues. Not by wolves. By something older. Something that bleeds black and burns in fire." Murmurs rose, disbelief and fear rippling through the assembly. Damien cut them off with a snarl. I fought them myself. 2 of them. In her home. His voice cracked like thunder. They are real. They are dangerous. And they came for her. Darrow's lip curled. Then banish her farther. If she draws such darkness, let it follow her out of our lands. The word sliced deep, but before Arya could flinch, Damien's power surged through the circle, his alpha voice undeniable. She is mine. And she carries my heir. Silence crashed down, stunned and heavy. Dozens of eyes turned to her, then to the subtle swell of her belly revealed as her cloak shifted in the firelight. Gasps echoed. Some wolves bowed their heads instinctively to the unborn heir. Others snarled, their anger sharp. She hides the alpha's child, one elder spat. She defied tradition. She obeyed my command, Damien cut in, voice sharp as a blade. Do not punish her for my mistake. She carries the future of this pack. The moon chose her. And I will kill any who speak otherwise. The weight of his words pressed down on the circle, forcing even dissenters to silence. Arya's heart hammered. She hadn't expected him to claim her, not so openly, not after everything. Her wolf pressed hard against her chest, desperate to close the space between them. Elder Varro's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. If what you say is true, Alpha, then the child is not just your heir. It is the prize those creatures seek. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. The question is, why? Damien glanced at Arya, then back at the council. His voice was dark with promise. We'll find out. And until then, she stays under my protection. For the first time in weeks, Arya did not stand alone. But as the council fire hissed and spat, she could feel the war building, not only against the creatures in the shadows, but within the pack itself. The days that followed were heavy with suspicion. Wherever Arya walked through the village, eyes followed, some filled with reverence, others with resentment. She heard the whispers carried on the wind, unfit, cursed, the alpha's mistake. Wolves who once turned away from her now either bowed awkwardly to her belly or spat on the ground as she passed. Damien's warriors shadowed her every step, their presence both shield and shackle. Arya's wolf bristled at the constant watch, yet she knew the threat was real. Twice more, creatures had been sighted at the borders, leaving only corpses and smoke behind. One evening, she escaped to the edge of the forest, where the pines whispered secrets in the dusk. Leora found her there, the old woman's cane tapping softly against the roots. They smell your fear, child, the crone murmured, settling onto a fallen log. But more than that, they smell destiny. Arya hugged her cloak tighter. Why him? Why my child? Leora's pale eyes gleamed. Because prophecy is a cruel thing. The moon wrote once of a child born of rejection, born of bond yet denied, who would unite or destroy the packs. Shadowborn things hunger for that power. They would twist it, claim it. The words chilled her blood. Destroy? Every gift bears its twin-edged curse, Leora whispered. The Alpha's heir is no ordinary babe. He will inherit not just his father's blood, but the fracture between you. That makes him dangerous. Desired. Before Arya could speak, the underbrush crackled. Damien emerged, golden eyes sharp in the dying light. His gaze flicked between the women, suspicion evident. What is she telling you? Arya straightened, her heart torn between resentment and relief at his presence. That our child is the reason they're hunting me. Damien's jaw clenched. He turned on Leora. How long have you known? The old woman chuckled, her voice like dry leaves. Long enough to know your pride would blind you, Alpha. You rejected what the moon bound, and in doing so, you created something rare. His eyes narrowed dangerously, but Arya stepped between them. She's right. Whatever this is, it's bigger than us. Bigger than the pack. We need answers, Damien. For a moment, his fury gave way to something else, fear, quickly hidden. He looked at Arya, the fire of command cooling into something more human. Then we'll find them. Together. The pack hall loomed in silence long after the wolves had retired for the night. Damien moved through its shadowed corridors with Arya at his side, their footsteps echoing against stone older than memory. He carried a torch, the flame spitting sparks that danced across carvings etched into the walls, wolves locked in eternal battle, moons waxing and waning, rivers of blood chiseled in red stone. Here, he said gruffly, stopping before a slab at the back of the chamber. Few in the pack knew of it, fewer still dared touch it. His father had once told him of a place hidden beneath the hall, a place only alphas could open. Arya's wolf stirred uneasily as Damien pressed his palm to the slab. Symbols flared faintly, responding to his bloodline. With a grinding roar, the stone shifted aside, revealing a spiral staircase plunging into darkness. The air grew colder with each step downward. Dust clung to their throats, and the torchlight revealed shelves carved directly into the walls, crammed with scrolls and brittle tomes bound in cracked leather. "This is older than the pack itself," Arya whispered, awe threading through her voice. Damien set the torch into a wall bracket, his expression grim. "My ancestors buried their secrets here. If the creatures hunting us are tied to prophecy, it'll be in these records." Hours bled away as they sifted through fragments of text. Arya traced the faded ink with careful fingers, her eyes catching on a passage scrawled in the curling script of Old Tongue. "Here," she breathed. Damien leaned close, his shoulder brushing hers. Together they read. "From rejection's womb shall rise the moonborn heir. Neither bound nor broken, but liminal, his howl shall call the scattered, his blood shall break the chains unseen. Chosen by shadow, chosen by flame. He shall unite the packs, or deliver them to the void." Silence fell, heavy as stone. Arya's hand went instinctively to her belly. The child stirred, a faint flutter that made her heart leap and twist at once. "Unite or destroy," she murmured. Damien's jaw hardened. "No void will take him. No shadow will twist what is mine." His hand hovered near hers, as though he longed to lay it over her stomach but dared not. His voice dropped, fierce and unyielding. "We'll fight every darkness that comes. I swear it." But as the torch flickered against the words carved into stone, Arya felt a chill coil through her. Prophecies were not promises. They were warnings. And she couldn't shake the fear that the greatest danger to her child might not come from the shadows outside, but from the bond, fragile and fractured, between herself and the alpha who had already broken her once. The next full moon rose crimson on the horizon, casting a bloody light over the Blackthorn village. The pack gathered in the clearing, the air thrumming with unease. Wolves shifted restlessly, claws scraping earth, teeth flashing in the firelight. Arya stood near the edge of the circle, Damien at her side. Whispers rippled like snakes in the grass, the air, cursed, shadowborn, salvation or ruin. Elder Varro stepped forward, his robe sweeping the dirt. His eyes gleamed sharp as a hawk's. "You all know what has been discovered," he declared, his voice carrying over the restless crowd. "A prophecy that speaks of a child, born of rejection, born of shadow. A child who could unite us, or destroy us." The crowd erupted, some with cheers, others with snarls. "A gift of the moon," one cried. "A curse to doom us all," another howled. Arya's wolf bristled, her protective instincts screaming. She pressed a hand to her stomach, every muscle taut as she endured the pack's scrutiny. Damien moved closer, his presence a shield, but his golden eyes glowed with fury. "Enough." His alpha command rolled like thunder, silencing the chaos. "This child is mine. He carries my blood, my bond. He is no curse." Varro sneered faintly. "You speak as a father, not an alpha. Can you swear the prophecy will not turn against us? Can you swear that your mistake?" A growl ripped from Damien's chest. "Careful, old man." Arya stepped forward before violence could spark. Her voice cut through the tension, clear and strong. "You all fear what you don't understand. But I have fought those creatures myself. They hunt because they fear him. Because they know what he will become. Does that sound like a curse to you? Murmurs rippled, uncertain. Some eyes softened, others hardened. The fracture was deepening. From the shadows, Marcus, the beta, stepped forward, his expression torn. Alpha, if the prophecy is true, then every pack beyond our borders will come for him. To claim him. To kill him. We cannot fight the world. Damien's gaze locked on his second, cold and unwavering. Then let them come. The crowd broke into another storm of argument, voices clashing like steel. Arya felt the weight of it pressing down on her chest. Her child wasn't just a secret anymore. He was a spark, and the pack was tinder, ready to ignite. And somewhere beyond the firelight, in the watching dark, eyes glowed red. Waiting. The first envoy arrived under a banner of silver and green, the crest of the Ashclaw pack gleaming against leather armor. Their alpha, Selene, strode into Blackthorn territory with a smile that never touched her eyes. Wolves flanked her, warriors lean and hungry, their gazes darting toward Arya like knives. Damien received them at the border, Arya at his side despite his unspoken wish to shield her away. His fingers brushed her elbow once, a warning, a tether, before he stepped forward. Selene, he said, voice low with suspicion. What brings Ashclaw to my lands? She tilted her head, dark hair spilling over one shoulder. Whispers, Damien. Rumors of a child born of rejection. A child the moon herself marked. You can't expect the other packs to ignore such prophecy. Arya's wolf bristled. Selene's gaze slid to her belly, lingering with greedy calculation. Damien's snarl cut the air. My heir is not a prize to be bargained or claimed. He belongs to Blackthorn, and to no one else. Selene's smile widened, razor sharp. Careful, Damien. If you hoard what should be shared, you may find more than shadows at your gates. The meeting ended without blood, but Arya felt the threat in Selene's words like ice along her spine. That night, the attack came. Not shadows this time, but wolves, Ashclaw assassins slipping through the pines, their claws and teeth gleaming in the moonlight. Arya woke to the crash of shattering wood. Damien was already moving, shifting mid-stride, his massive wolf form crashing into the first intruder. Blood spattered the floor, a howl splitting the night. Arya grabbed her dagger, heart hammering. Another wolf lunged through the window, fangs bared for her throat. She ducked, blade flashing, and slashed its shoulder. Pain seared her arm as claws grazed her skin, but her wolf surged forward, lending her strength. Arya. Damien's voice thundered even in his wolf form, his golden eyes locking on her. He tore the assassin away from her with a snarl, jaws snapping bone. The last attacker fled into the trees, howling a warning. Panting, blood dripping down her arm, Arya met Damien's eyes across the wreckage of the cottage. His chest heaved, his fur matted with gore, but his gaze burned only for her, and for the child she carried. They won't stop, she whispered, voice trembling. They'll keep coming until they're all dead, Damien finished, shifting back, his body gleaming with sweat and blood. His hand cupped her cheek, fierce and desperate. I swear to you, Arya, no pack, no shadow, no prophecy will take him from us. But outside, the forest seethed with howls. And far beyond the borders of Blackthorn, other packs were already stirring. Preparations for war changed everything. The Blackthorn clearing became a forge of fury and resolve. Warriors sparred from dawn until the stars blazed, the clang of steel and clash of claws echoing through the pines. The scent of sharpened blades, oiled leather, and smoldering fire pits filled the air. Arya trained too, though Damien bristled at the thought of her fighting. You'll exhaust yourself, he growled one morning as she strapped a dagger to her thigh. Her eyes flashed. Better I exhaust myself now than bleed helpless when they come for me, or for him. The unspoken truth hung between them, she was the center of the storm, the child within her the reason the packs bristled with hunger and fear. To hide would be to surrender. To fight was the only choice. Damien relented with a frustrated snarl, but he trained her himself, his hands guiding hers as she parried, his voice low and demanding in her ear. Again. Harder. Don't hesitate. His presence burned like fire, every brush of his touch awakening the bond between them. At night, when the camp quieted, they pored over maps and whispers carried by their spies. Ashclaw had allied with Iron Fang, and whispers claimed even distant packs were sending scouts. The forest itself seemed to thrum with restless danger. One evening, as Arya traced a path across the borderlands, Damien's hand covered hers, stilling it. She looked up to find him studying her, not the maps, not the prophecy, but her. "You should hate me," he said quietly, the words raw as an open wound. Arya's throat tightened. "I did," she admitted. "For rejecting me. For making me feel like I was nothing." She drew in a shaky breath, her palm instinctively resting on her belly. "But he's proof I wasn't nothing." Damien's jaw flexed, guilt shadowing his golden eyes. "I was a coward. Afraid of what I felt. Afraid of losing control. I told myself I didn't need you, but the bond never broke. I feel it every time I breathe." Silence pulsed between them, heavy and fragile. Arya's heart twisted. She wanted to hate him still, wanted to cling to the anger that had kept her strong. But the way he watched her, the way he fought for her, was breaking down walls she'd thought unshakable. "Don't say these things if you don't mean them," she whispered. "I mean every word," he swore. His hand brushed her cheek, thumb catching on a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "You and our son are my pack now. My everything." Her wolf surged at his vow, yearning, aching. She let herself lean into his touch, just for a moment, even as fear gnawed her edges. Because love was as dangerous as prophecy. And if he broke her again, it would shatter her more completely than any enemy's blade. The strike came beneath a storm-heavy sky. Thunder rolled over the blackthorn clearing as wolves poured from the tree line, their howls braided together in a terrible chorus. Iron Fang's hulking warriors led the charge, their fangs gleaming like ivory daggers, while Ashclaw's sleek hunters flanked them, eyes burning with bloodlust. Arya stood in the center of the chaos, her daggers strapped to her thighs, her heartbeat rattling like war drums. Damien's wolf form was already in motion, a blur of golden fur and lethal power as he slammed into the first wave of intruders, his roar shaking the night. "Stay behind me," he commanded through the bond, his voice rumbling in her mind. But staying back wasn't an option. The enemy wasn't here just to test the Blackthorn Alpha, they were here for her. For the child. Arya's wolf rose within her, feral and protective. When a hunter broke past Damien's line and lunged at her, she moved without thought. Her blade flashed, sinking deep into its side. Blood sprayed her skin, hot and metallic, but she did not falter. "Protect him. Protect my son." All around her, the clearing became a maelstrom of snarls and steel. Wolves collided in brutal arcs, bodies rolling across mud slick with rain and blood. Arya fought with a desperate grace, every strike driven by the instinct to shield the life inside her. Damien was everywhere at once, snapping jaws, ripping flesh, his eyes always flicking back to her. But even he couldn't stem the tide alone. More poured in. For every enemy slain, two more seemed to take their place. Then she saw him, Marcus, Damien's own beta, standing at the tree line with a knot of blackthorn wolves at his back. But instead of fighting, they watched. Waiting. Arya's stomach turned cold. Betrayal. Damien followed her gaze mid-strike, his golden eyes widening with fury. His snarl ripped the storm itself in two. "Marcus." But the beta only sneered. "The prophecy belongs to all, not just you, Alpha. You would hoard it for yourself? Then you are no better than the shadows you claim to fight." Before Damien could answer, another wave of enemies surged. One slipped past, its claws aimed straight for Arya's belly. Time slowed. She saw the arc of its strike, the glint of its fangs, the inevitability of its aim. And then Damien was there, throwing himself between her and death. The blow landed on him instead. Blood sprayed the mud. "Damien!" Arya screamed, her voice tearing through the storm. Damien staggered, crimson staining his chest where the claws had ripped through flesh. His wolf snarled, feral and unyielding, but the pain shuddered through the bond, striking Arya like fire in her veins. "No, no, stay with me," she cried, catching his arm as he faltered. Another attacker lunged. Arya reacted on instinct, her blade flashing across its throat. Hot blood sprayed her hands, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. She shoved herself in front of Damien, every muscle screaming to protect him, protect their child, protect everything. Damien's wolf form shuddered, and he shifted back, naked and bleeding, his golden eyes blazing with fury even through the haze of pain. He forced himself upright, teeth bared. "I will not fall while you still need me." The pack bond flared, raw and electrified. Wolves who had hesitated surged forward, their loyalty to Damien outweighing Marcus's treachery. Blackthorn warriors closed ranks around their alpha, snarling defiance at the invaders. But the enemy pressed harder, desperate to break through. Arya's wolf clawed at her skin, demanding release, but shifting now, while pregnant, was a risk that could tear her apart. Damien grabbed her wrist, his grip iron despite his wound. His voice was ragged but fierce. "Arya. You have to choose. Keep fighting, and risk the child, or fall back and protect him while I hold the line." Tears blurred her vision. She couldn't bear to leave him. But the tiny flutter in her womb, the fragile heartbeat she'd sworn to protect, was a reminder sharper than any blade. "Don't ask me to leave you," she whispered, broken. "You're not leaving me." He pulled her close, his blood smearing her skin. His lips brushed her temple, a fleeting, desperate kiss. "You're saving him. Our future." Before she could answer, another wave of wolves crashed against their defenses, the storm howling with blood and fury. Arya's decision clawed at her throat. To stay meant risking their child. To flee meant leaving Damien to bleed alone. Both choices tore her heart in two. And then, deep in her chest, her wolf answered. A surge of power unlike anything she'd ever felt roared through her veins, hot and wild. The prophecy's echo whispered in her bones, neither bound nor broken, but liminal. Her body began to shift, not fully, not into the wolf that would tear her apart, but into something else. Something between. Her nails lengthened into claws, her eyes glowed silver, her voice layered with a feral growl. Damien's eyes widened, awe and terror blending in their golden depths. "Moon above," he rasped. "You're becoming what he is. What he'll be." Power tore through Arya like wildfire. Her senses sharpened to a painful edge, every heartbeat, every drop of rain, every snarl of enemy wolves vibrating through her bones. The air carried the metallic tang of blood and the ozone of lightning, all of it clear as if the storm itself whispered in her ear. Her claws ripped through the first attacker with terrifying ease. She moved faster than she ever had before, striking, twisting, dodging, her body flowing with a grace not entirely her own. Silver light bled from her skin, illuminating the battlefield in an otherworldly glow. The enemy faltered. Some wolves stumbled back, fear scent rising thick in the air. Moonborn, one snarled before Arya's blade sank into its chest. Damien, despite the wound soaking his side, fought with renewed strength at her back. Every time he faltered, she was there, striking before danger could touch him. Every time she surged too far, his roar pulled her back. Together, they were storm and flame, unstoppable, unyielding. But the cost gnawed at her. Her belly cramped, sharp and sudden, a pain that nearly buckled her knees. The child stirred violently, as though the power coursing through her veins was spilling into him, too strong for his tiny body. "No. Hold on. Please, hold on." Her wolf screamed in defiance, but the bond with her child pulsed erratically, wild and unpredictable. She realized then, this form wasn't meant for her alone. It was theirs, shared between mother and unborn son. And every strike she dealt, every surge of power, risked burning them both alive. "Arya." Damien's voice thundered through the bond as he ripped an iron-fang wolf off her. His eyes blazed with both pride and terror. You have to stop, you'll kill yourself. You'll kill him. I can't stop, she snarled, slashing another attacker across the throat. If I fall now, they'll take us both anyway. The clearing reeked of blood and rain, bodies scattered across the mud. Blackthorn wolves rallied behind her, howling as if her silver glow was a banner of hope. But with every enemy that fell, the pain inside her grew sharper, threatening to tear her apart from the inside. Lightning split the sky, and for a moment Arya saw herself reflected in Damien's golden eyes, silver-lit, half wolf, half woman, her belly glowing faintly as if the child himself burned with otherworldly fire. The prophecy's words echoed in her mind, neither bound nor broken, but liminal. And she understood, this was only the beginning. The storm broke with a scream of thunder, and the battlefield shifted. Arya's silver glow lit the clearing, casting enemy wolves into stark relief as they faltered. One by one, their snarls wavered into whines, their claws dragging through the mud in retreat. The fear was palpable, even Ironfang brutes hesitated, tails low, eyes darting toward the tree-line. Moonborn, one whispered, voice shaking. She'll tear us all apart. The tide turned. Blackthorn warriors surged forward with renewed fury, driving their foes into the shadows. Ashclaw's assassins vanished into the storm, dragging the wounded, abandoning the dead. Within minutes, the howls faded into silence, leaving only the crackle of rain on bloodied earth. Arya stood in the center, swaying, her claws still dripping crimson. Her body trembled violently, her knees buckling as the silver light guttered and dimmed. She clutched her belly, pain stabbing deep, sharp enough to wrench a cry from her throat. Arya! Damien was there in an instant, his hands catching her before she collapsed. His face was a mask of blood and desperation, his golden eyes wild. Stay with me. Stay with me, damn it. Her breaths came ragged, every inhale searing. He's burning inside me. Damien, I can't. Don't say that, he snarled, holding her tighter, as if his strength alone could anchor her. You've carried us all this far. You don't get to stop now. But even as he said it, he felt the bond fraying, her wolf and the child's energy surging too hot, too wild. If she kept bleeding power, both of them would be lost. He turned, shouting over the wreckage. Varro! The healers, now! The old seer hurried forward, eyes wide with awe and terror as he took in Arya's glowing skin, her twisted half-shift. Alpha, this is beyond healing. She's channeling him. The unborn one. If she doesn't release it. Tell me what to do. Damien roared, his grip unrelenting. Varro hesitated only a breath before muttering, there is an old rite. Dangerous. It binds the mother's life to the child's, tethering them so neither burns out. But if either falters, both perish. Arya gasped, her claws digging into Damien's arms as another wave of pain tore through her. Her silver eyes met his, fierce even through the haze. Do it. I won't lose him. Damien's throat closed. He would rather carve out his own heart than risk her life, but he saw no other path. Her determination was a blade sharper than prophecy itself. Fine, he rasped, pressing his bloodied forehead to hers. But if this right costs you, if it takes you from me, Arya, I swear I'll follow you into the void. Her lips curved in the faintest, broken smile. You don't get to reject me twice. Varro knelt in the mud, his robes already soaked and streaked with blood, and drew a circle with trembling fingers. Ashen crushed herbs mixed with rain as he traced ancient sigils into the earth, each one glowing faintly under the silver stormlight still leaking from Arya's skin. Lay her here, he commanded. Damien obeyed, lowering Arya into the center of the circle as though she were made of glass. She arched with another spasm, her hands clutching her belly, sweat and rain streaming down her face. Her silver-lit eyes found his, fierce even in her pain. Don't let go, she whispered. Never, Damien vowed, sinking to his knees beside her. His bloodied hand twined with hers, anchoring her as Varro began to chant in the old tongue. The air thickened, heavy with power. Lightning forked overhead, illuminating the circle as the sigils bled light. Darrow's voice wove through the storm, calling to gods older than moon and shadow. You must give your blood, the elder rasped. Alpha's blood to bind the bond. Without hesitation, Damien drew a dagger and sliced his palm. He pressed the wound to areas, their mingled blood dripping into the glowing circle. Heat surged immediately, a tether pulling tight between them, burning through their veins like fire and ice. Arya screamed, her back arching, as the silver glow in her skin flared brighter. Damien's own body convulsed as the bond yanked taut, every pulse of her heart slamming against his, every flutter of the child echoing inside his chest as if it were his own. Neither bound nor broken, but liminal. The prophecy hissed through Damien's skull as if the storm itself whispered it. He clung to her, his wolf howling against the weight of power trying to tear them apart. Arya's voice broke through the storm, ragged and fierce. I can feel him, our son. He's fighting. Then fight with him, Damien urged, his blood mixing with hers in the mud, his golden eyes blazing. Hold on to me, Arya. Hold on to us. The circle burned brighter, the light searing their skin, until it felt as though the world itself might split. Damien poured everything he had into the bond, his love, his guilt, his vow never to fail her again. He pushed it through the tether, into her, into the child. And then, with a sound like a thunderclap, the storm stilled. The light sank into the earth. The sigil smoldered and went dark. Arya collapsed against Damien's chest, her breathing ragged but steady. The silver glow had dimmed, but not vanished, faint traces lingered along her veins, like moonlight etched beneath her skin. Varro sagged, his voice hoarse. It is done. They are bound. Mother, child, and Alpha. Their fates, inseparable. Damien held her tighter, his bloodied lips pressing against her hair. He didn't care about fate. All that mattered was the fragile heartbeat fluttering through the bond, steady now, alive. But as the storm clouds broke and moonlight spilled across the clearing, Damien lifted his gaze to the horizon. The battle was over, but the war had only begun. The days after the binding rite were eerily quiet. The pack licked its wounds, burying its dead beneath cairns of stone while the forest whispered with uneasy silence. Arya rested in the Alpha's quarters, her strength returning slowly, though the faint silver glow under her skin never faded. At night, when she slept curled against Damien, he swore he could hear two heartbeats, hers and the child's, echoing inside his own chest. At first, he thought it was a trick of the bond. But when he sparred with his warriors days later, he staggered mid-strike as a sharp pain lanced his side. He clutched his ribs, breathless, only to learn Arya had woken at that exact moment, her body aching in the same place. Varro confirmed their fears with grim certainty. The rite has tied you together. Her pain is yours. The child's pain is yours. If either falters, his gaze was heavy, knowing. You falter too, Alpha. Damien hid the truth from the pack, but Arya saw the shadow in his golden eyes. He masked it with fury, with relentless training, with endless patrols along the border. But at night, when the world was still, she pressed her palm to his chest and whispered, "You can't carry this burden alone." He kissed her hand fiercely, almost desperately. "I'd rather bleed with you than live without you." But even as their bond deepened, the consequences of the rite rippled outward. Arya felt stronger than she ever had, her senses sharper, her wolf restless and wild. The child stirred often, his heartbeat steady but thrumming with strange, potent energy. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she swore she could hear him, feel thoughts that weren't quite words pressing against the edges of her mind. And Damien felt it too. During a midnight patrol, his wolf froze mid-step as a faint whisper threaded through his skull. Not his wolf. Not Arya. Something smaller, rawer, but familiar. Father. The word was faint, fragile, but it drove him to his knees. His claws dug into the earth, his chest tight with awe and fear. When he returned to Arya, he couldn't bring himself to speak of it, not yet. Because if their son's voice was already reaching through the bond before his first breath, then the prophecy was unfolding faster than any of them had prepared for. And in the shadows beyond Blackthorn's borders, rival packs were not the only ones stirring. Something older, something that reeked of void and hunger, had begun to move. Drawn not by Arya, not by Damien, but by the heartbeat of the moonborn child. It began with the animals. The forest around Blackthorn grew silent, prey scattering as if fleeing something unseen. Deer carcasses were found near the river, their eyes blackened, their bodies drained of scent. Ravens circled in restless swarms, crying warnings in harsh voices that made the wolves' hackles rise. Then came the dreams. Arya woke one night with a scream lodged in her throat, clutching her belly. Damien was already upright, his claws half-shifted, golden eyes blazing. "What did you see?" he demanded, his voice rough, though his hand softened as it pressed against her back. She trembled. Shadows. Not wolves. Not human. They had no faces, no scent. Only hunger. They reached for him, she broke off, her voice shaking. They called him theirs. Damien's jaw clenched so hard it ached. He pulled her against his chest, his wolf snarling inside him. They'll never touch him. I'll tear them apart. But later, when Arya finally drifted back into uneasy sleep, Damien lay awake, staring into the dark. Because he had dreamed it too. And he had heard the whisper again. Not from their son this time, but from something else. Something cold and endless. Moonborn. Deliver him. He is the key. The next day, scouts returned with grim news: a patrol near the northern ridge had vanished. No scent trail, no signs of battle, just silence, as if the wolves had been swallowed whole. Varro listened with a face carved of stone. This is no rival pack, he murmured. This is older. The void has taken interest. The child's light calls to it. Arya's hand tightened over her belly, fear and fury warring in her silver-flecked eyes. Then we'll fight it. Whatever it is. But Varro only shook his head. You cannot fight shadows with claws. The void is not flesh. It devours bonds, tears wolves from their souls. If it comes in force, his gaze lingered on Arya and Damien, heavy with unspoken meaning. Your bond may be both shield and snare. That night, as rain whispered against the roof, Damien wrapped Arya in his arms and pressed his forehead to hers. No matter what comes, I'll hold you. I'll hold him. Even if the void itself tries to tear us apart. Arya's wolf answered in a low growl, fierce and protective. But deep inside her belly, the child stirred, and for the first time, the bond carried not only warmth, but something colder. A flicker of shadow. The first strike came at dusk. A mist rolled through the Blackthorn clearing, heavy and unnatural, swallowing torches and choking the air. Wolves shifted nervously, their ears twitching, their instincts screaming danger. But there was no scent. No heartbeats. Only silence, thick and crushing. Damien's voice cut through the fog, sharp as a blade. Hold formation. No one breaks rank. His golden eyes glowed in the dark, a beacon for his pack. Then the shadows moved. They slid between trees like ink in water, faceless, formless things that stretched into claws and teeth made of nothing. A young warrior lunged, his jaws snapping, but his teeth passed through the shadow as if it were smoke. In the next breath, his scream tore the air, his body convulsing as the void ripped the wolf from his flesh. He collapsed human, hollow-eyed, his soul gone. Panic surged. Wolves snarled and slashed, but every strike fell useless. The shadows were not flesh, they were hunger, devouring bonds, feeding on spirit. Arya clutched her belly, her wolf howling inside her. The child stirred violently, his heartbeat a frantic drum against her ribs. And then, light flared beneath her skin, silver and searing, spilling into the mist. The shadows recoiled, writhing as if burned. Arya! Damien's voice roared, equal parts command and fear. He fought his way to her, his claws dripping blood from wolves that had fallen under the void's influence, their eyes black with corruption. He reached her side, his chest heaving. Her silver-lit eyes locked on him. It's him. He's pushing through me. He can fight them. Damien's gut twisted. He could feel it too, the child's raw, radiant power spilling through the tether, too strong for Arya's body to contain. Her veins glowed, her hands shaking with the force of it. If you release it, Varro's voice cried from the fog, distant and desperate. You risk burning her alive. A shadow lunged, its claws stretching for Arya. Damien's wolf surged forward, but it was too fast. Arya raised her hand. Silver fire erupted, slicing through the mist like a blade of moonlight. The shadow shrieked, its form unraveling into smoke before it vanished. The entire clearing froze. Shadows twisted and hissed, circling, but none dared lunge again. They recoiled from her light, writhing like snakes before fire. Damien's arms closed around her, steadying her trembling body. Her glow dimmed as quickly as it had come, her breaths ragged, her strength nearly spent. But the shadows, they retreated. Slowly, reluctantly, slipping back into the mist until only silence remained. The wolves stood stunned, panting in the aftermath. Dozens dead, more wounded, but alive, because of her. Damien pressed his forehead to hers, his blood-slicked body shaking. You saved us. But Arya's eyes, silver still, were haunted. No. He did. Her hand drifted to her belly. And I don't know how long his light will stay his own, or how much of it belongs to the void. The clearing smelled of blood and ash. Bodies were carried to the pyres, their faces covered, their wolves gone forever to the void. Survivors limped among the wreckage, some whispering prayers, others casting wary glances at Arya. At her belly. By the time dawn broke, the murmurs had become sharp enough to cut. She saved us. No, it was the child. A weapon, not a savior. What if the void claims him next? Arya felt every word like a stone against her ribs. Her wolf bristled, ready to bare fangs, but the bond tethered her to something heavier, fear. Not for herself, but for the small, restless life inside her. Damien silenced the whispers with a growl that cracked through the clearing. Anyone who questions her questions me. His golden eyes blazed, daring anyone to speak. She carries my heir. The Moonborn. And I'll tear the throat from anyone who forgets it. The pack bowed their heads, but submission didn't erase doubt. Their fear clung like smoke. Later, in the quiet of the Alpha's quarters, Arya sat near the fire, her hands cradling her belly. The silver glow beneath her skin flickered faintly, pulsing with the child's heartbeat. Damien crouched beside her, his body still bandaged from battle, his eyes searching her face. You shouldn't listen to them, he said softly, though his voice carried an edge of fury. They owe you their lives. They're not wrong to be afraid, Arya whispered. She met his gaze, silver colliding with gold. When the shadows touched me, I felt something. Like they knew him. Like they were reaching for him. Damien's jaw tightened. He belongs to us. To you. Not to them. But what if he belongs to both? Her voice cracked. What if the prophecy doesn't mean he'll save us? What if it means he'll destroy us, Damien? His hand cupped her cheek, his touch rough but reverent. Then I'll destroy the prophecy itself. I don't give a damn what fate says. He's ours. And no void, no shadow, no damned line of ink on parchment will take him from us. Tears burned her eyes, but she leaned into his touch, the bond humming between them. His conviction was fire, burning, blinding, but it couldn't banish the cold truth gnawing at her heart. Because deep inside, when she reached for the child through the tether, she didn't just feel warmth anymore. She felt hunger, too. And she didn't know whose it was. Marcus moved like a shadow through the camp, quiet, efficient, the kind of man wolves trusted because he never made a show of power. He'd been Damien's right hand for years, his loyalty had been a given. But fear is a seed that roots quickly in fertile soil, and Marcus had learned how to reap what it grew. He began with whispers, small knives slipped into conversation. The child is a weapon, he told an older warrior in the smoke of a cook fire, voice low. A weapon you don't control will turn on you. The warrior frowned, remembering the hollow-eyed pup dragged from the void. Could be, the man muttered. Better to bind it than be bound by it. From there, Marcus widened his circle, quiet meetings in the stables, hushed walks along the riverbank. He spoke of strategy, of risk, of inevitability. He never called Arya a monster aloud, he didn't have to. He spoke of duty to the pack, of protecting future generations. In his hands the prophecy malformed into a threat. Not a destiny to be embraced, but a fuse burning dangerously close to the powder keg of blackthorn. When the elders grew indecisive, Marcus moved to the young hunters. He reminded them of fathers and brothers lost, of the emptiness the void left in those who survived. We follow an alpha who'd risk the whole pack on one unborn life, he said, dark and persuasive. Who knows what bargains were struck to bind them together? Who knows what control he now cedes to a child who speaks in dreams? Small rebellions began as small things, a patrol turned a blind eye, a pallet left empty, a watch post unmanned. Then came the night patrols that didn't answer the whistle and the food stores found unlocked. Arya felt it the way she felt the first approaching storm, subtle changes in the rhythm of the pack, a chill that had nothing to do with weather. Damien noticed it too, his temper sharpened, his sleep thinner with each passing dusk. You're seeing it, Arya said one dusk as they stood on the ridge, watching smoke drift from the village chimneys. Her voice was careful, as if testing the world. Marcus is turning wolves. Damien's fists clenched so tight his knuckles went white. I know. He spat into the soil, bitter. He calls it caution. He calls it survival. He's stirring a mutiny. His eyes, usually molten with restrained power, flicked to her stomach as if to measure the future's worth against the present danger. I will not let loyalty fracture this pack. Then stop him, she said, breathless with the need to fix everything. Confront him. Expose him. Fear threaded her words, not for herself only, but for the child tethered to them both. He studied her, the alpha and the man in one burning silhouette. If I move too hard, I risk giving him ground, he said. If I move too soft, the rot spreads. His gaze dropped to the valley below where several hunters melted into shadow. We have to be precise. Damien summoned Marcus under the pretense of counsel, drawing him into the council chamber where the carved moonstones glowed pale. Marcus arrived composed, a wolf who'd never expected to be suspected. Damien's voice was calm, but his eyes were steel. You're stirring dissent, Damien said plainly. What is your aim? Marcus's jaw did not tighten. To preserve the pack. To ensure we aren't destroyed by a hunger we cannot see. You question my judgment? Damien's warning thrummed through the hall like thunder. I question what I smell, Marcus answered. Fear brings out truth. And truth shows that we cannot place one life above all others. The exchange could have ended in a duel then and there, honor demanded it. But Marcus had not come unarmed with words, and more wolves lurked at the edge of the chamber, silent witnesses he'd quietly swayed. He walked a slow, deliberate line between duty and ambition, and in that space he planted doubt. When he left, a different kind of war had already begun, one of alliances and secret oaths. Damien felt it in the weight of the air, heavy and metallic. Arya felt it as a tremor beneath her skin, not the child's kick, but the pack's heartbeat changing its tempo. The tether hummed with an anxious note, protective, fierce, and suddenly brittle. That night, as rain began to patter against the roof of the Alpha's quarters, a lone howl rose from the woods, one note, high and precise, the signal of a hunted thing. Damien and Arya exchanged a single, hard look, each understanding the unspoken truth. Marcus had moved beyond whispering. Now he would act. And the next move in his game would demand a choice that might finally prove whether prophecy was doom or salvation. The howl tore through the night, sharp and urgent. Damien was on his feet before the sound had faded, pulling on his cloak, his wolf already prowling beneath his skin. Arya rose too, slower, her hand pressed against her belly. The child stirred restlessly, a thrum of energy echoing through the tether. He felt the threat as keenly as they did. A scout stumbled into the clearing moments later, his fur bristling, his flank bloodied. He shifted mid-run, collapsing on the steps of the Alpha's house, gasping. Ambush, North Ridge. Marcus's men turned on us. They're taking wolves. Taking? Damien's growl shook the air. The scout nodded, eyes wide with terror. Not killing. Dragging them away. South, into the fog. Aria's breath caught. The tether pulled tight, and ached deep in her ribs. Not pain, but warning. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. It's not Marcus alone. Something else is moving with them. I can feel it. Damien cursed under his breath. His instinct screamed for him to tear Marcus limb from limb, to crush rebellion before it took root. But the Void's hand was already in play. Marcus wasn't just sowing doubt, he was feeding the shadows with wolves too blind to know they were prey. Varro appeared from the shadows of the hall, staff in hand, his eyes sharp despite his age. This is no simple betrayal, he said grimly. The Void moves through Marcus, bending his will, amplifying his ambition. He thinks he leads, but he is being led. Aria's pulse thundered in her ears. Then if he brings the Void deeper into the pack. Damien finished for her, his voice low and lethal. We'll be gutted from the inside. He turned to Aria, his hand finding hers, gripping it tightly. Stay here. Protect him. His eyes flicked to her belly, fierce, commanding. But Aria shook her head, silver fire flickering faintly in her gaze. No. He's part of me. I can feel what the Void is doing through Marcus, Damien. If you go without me, you'll walk into darkness blind. Let me see for us both. Damien's wolf snarled in protest, but the tether thrummed in agreement. He could feel her strength, her certainty, the child's restless heartbeat urging her forward. A beat of silence stretched between them, their bond vibrating with unspoken fear and need. Finally, Damien bowed his head, just slightly. A concession only she could win. Stay at my side, he growled. Always at my side. Aria's lips curved in the faintest smile, fierce and aching all at once. Always. And so they went together into the mist-choked forest, the pack at their backs, the bond between them burning brighter than the moon above. What they found on the northern ridge would scar Blackthorn forever. The northern ridge loomed like a broken fong against the night sky, its slopes swallowed in fog. The trees there bent at unnatural angles, their bark blackened as though fire had licked them centuries ago. The moment Aria stepped onto the ridge, her wolf bristled. The tether thrummed sharp, warning, like a blade drawn too close to skin. Shapes moved in the mist. Wolves, Blackthorn wolves, stood in a loose semicircle, their eyes hollow, their bodies stiff. They didn't snarl or advance. They just stood, like sentinels waiting for command. And at the center of them stood Marcus. His eyes glowed faintly, but not gold, not the pure light of wolf blood. They were rimmed in ink-black shadow, the Void's corruption licking at the edges. His smile was calm, almost kind, but it didn't reach his face. Alpha. His voice carried smooth as silk, too steady for a traitor caught in the act. You came sooner than I expected. Damien's growl thundered, vibrating the very air. Release them. His claws slid free, his wolf bristling beneath his skin. Or I'll rip your heart from your chest. Marcus's gaze drifted past him to Aria. To her belly. It's not me you need to fear. The Void doesn't come to destroy us, it comes to claim what is already theirs. The wolves behind him shifted, restless, their mouths opening in unison. But no words came. Only a whisper, layered and cold, seeping from their throats. Moonborn. Deliver him. Aria staggered back, her hands flying to her stomach. The tether flared, heat, light, and beneath it, a pulse of shadow. The child stirred violently, caught between two hungers. Damien lunged forward, fury blazing, but Marcus raised a hand. Shadows coiled from his palm, not smoke, not air, something thicker, alive. It lashed forward, striking Damien like a whip. The Alpha staggered, his skin blistering where it touched, the bond sparking pain down into Arya's body. She gasped, falling to her knees. Silver fire flickered under her skin, desperate to answer the attack. Damien snarled, golden eyes blazing as he forced himself upright, the wound already smoking. "Marcus," he roared, voice breaking the night. "The void is inside you. Fight it." For a heartbeat, something human flickered in Marcus's face, doubt, fear, a memory of loyalty. But then the shadow surged again, twisting his features into a mask of hunger. "I am fighting," Marcus rasped, his voice layered with another tone, something older, deeper. "I fight for survival. For strength. For the future your heir cannot give us." Arya forced herself upright, silver light spilling from her hands. "You're wrong," she said, her voice trembling but sharp. "He isn't a weapon for you, or for them. He's ours. And if you keep reaching for him, you'll burn." The mist thickened, shadow swirling like a storm about to break. Damien stepped forward, claws out, his body shielding hers. The tether burned between them, hot and unyielding. "Then let it end here," he growled, his wolf surging free. The ridge erupted into chaos. The ridge exploded with sound and fury. Damien shifted mid-lunge, his wolf tearing free in a blaze of gold and shadow, claws raking across the earth. He crashed into Marcus with bone-shattering force, the impact sending shockwaves through the ground. But Marcus didn't fall. The void inside him surged outward, wrapping him in tendrils of black that hardened like armor, turning his flesh into something no longer wholly wolf. The possessed pack wolves leapt into motion, their eyes blank, their howls hollow. They swarmed, teeth gnashing, claws flashing in the dim light. Arya braced herself, fire roaring beneath her skin. The tether snapped taut, the child's heartbeat hammering like war drums. Silver light poured from her veins, a shield flaring into being just as the first corrupted wolf lunged. He struck the barrier with a sickening thud, his body recoiling as if scorched. Her breath came ragged, but she stood tall, her wolf howling inside her. "You won't have them," she snarled, her voice layered with the echo of something greater. "You won't have him." Marcus's laughter cut through the chaos, twisted and low. His wolf-like shape loomed larger in the fog, shadows making him monstrous. "You think you can hold him? That child is already mine. The void sings in his blood." Damien slammed into him again, jaws closing around Marcus's throat, but instead of tearing flesh, his teeth sank into smoke. Marcus twisted, a tendril of shadow slamming into Damien's ribs and flinging him back into the rocks. Pain seared through the tether, ripping a cry from Arya's throat as she fell to one knee. The child stirred violently in her womb, and with the movement came a blinding pulse of silver fire. It burst outward, searing across the ridge. Corrupted wolves staggered, shrieking, their hollow eyes shattering into light as the void was torn from them. Some collapsed, unconscious but breathing, others dissolved into ash where the corruption had fully consumed them. The tether thrummed louder, stronger. Arya felt the child's presence as if he were already outside her, small but fierce, his spirit blazing like a newborn star. For a moment, she thought she heard his voice again. "Mother. Father. Together." Damien rose from the rocks, his wolf bleeding but unbroken. Golden eyes locked on silver as the tether blazed like a burning rope between them. Energy surged along the bond, binding their strength into one. "Now," Arya gasped, her voice carrying through the chaos. "Strike now." Damien roared and leapt, his claws ignited with her silver light, his body moving as though guided by more than his own strength. He slammed into Marcus, the tether flaring with a brilliance that burned through the mist. Claws met shadows, light met void. For the first time, Marcus staggered. But the void inside him screamed, filling the ridge with a sound that was not wolf, not human, something ancient and endless. The ground shook. The mist thickened. And the battle was far from over. The void screamed. It poured out of Marcus in a tidal wave of black mist, swallowing the ridge, blotting out the moon. Wolves howled in terror as the air turned cold enough to sting, their fur bristling against the unnatural chill. Marcus's body convulsed, his flesh tearing and reforming, his wolf form warping into something grotesque. His muzzle elongated into a jagged snarl, his eyes twin pits of shadow. When he spoke, his voice carried two tones, his own and something older, deeper, hungrier. You cannot fight nothingness. You cannot fight the end. Damien roared in defiance, golden light flaring across his wolf form as he launched forward again. But Marcus caught him mid-air, shadow claws slicing through fur and flesh, flinging him to the ground with bone-cracking force. Damien yelped, a sound that tore through Arya's heart like knives. The tether seared hot, and she felt his pain in her ribs, sharp and suffocating. She staggered, nearly falling, her hands clutching her belly. The child's heartbeat thundered, stronger, faster, filling her ears with its rhythm. And then came the whisper, small, urgent, desperate. "Mother. Let me fight." Her breath hitched. The tether pulsed, silver fire licking at her veins, begging to be released. But Barrow's warning echoed in her mind, if you channel him too soon, your body may not survive it. Damien struggled to rise, blood matting his fur, golden eyes locking on hers through the chaos. He didn't need words. She felt his plea through the bond, don't risk yourself. Don't. But Arya looked at Marcus, at the void spreading from him like rot, wolves falling back in terror, the ridge cracking under its weight. And she knew there was no choice. Her silver-lit eyes met Damien's, fierce and unwavering. "We fight together," she whispered. "All three of us." She spread her arms, surrendering to the tether. Light burst from her body, silver and pure, threaded with gold. The child's heartbeat roared into the night, echoing like a war drum. The glow surged outward, wrapping around Damien, fusing with his golden light until wolf and mate and unborn heir blazed as one. The void shrieked, recoiling as if burned. Marcus staggered, shadows writhing violently around him. "No." His voice fractured, desperate. "He belongs to me." Damien lunged again, his claws blazing with silver-gold fire. Arya cried out, channeling every drop of strength she had into him, into their bond. The tether burned, her veins alight with fire, her body trembling on the edge of collapse. Their strike met Marcus in a blinding flash, light colliding with shadow, tearing the night apart. The ridge shook, trees split, rocks shattered. Wolves fell to their knees, shielding their eyes. And in the heart of the storm, only light and void remained, locked in battle. The light and void warred, searing the ridge with every heartbeat. Marcus howled, his body twisting as the shadows fought to hold him together. One half of his face still wore the features of the wolf Arya once knew, scarred, sharp, loyal. The other half was nothing but black smoke, a hollow echo of hunger.